Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sandy Granite Family History Center continuing class series on Tuesday nights. We're glad to have you here, either in person tonight or whenever you choose to watch this. Again, if you choose to watch it later, you can find all of our classes over the past, year, 2 years or so at the Granite Family History Center website, which is www.granitefhc.com. And if you'll go to the resources or the schedules tab, either one of them, you can find the past webinars and classes that we've been holding. Tonight, we are very privileged to have a really great guy, Miles Meyer, who is in Vero Beach, Florida. And he may have to take some time off a little bit. If you see him disappear, it's probably because he's taking care of his parrot. If you hear something in the background, that's not his kids or his wife, that's his parrot and everything. But we love the parrot. And Miles is the director for the Vero Beach Family History Center. He's also been a very frequent presenter at Roots Tech and other presentations he does around the country. Miles, I don't know where to start with you. He's actively involved in all kinds of stuff. He has more than 10 fingers because he has so many fingers and so many pies. I'm sure must have at least 20 fingers. But we love him because not only is he involved with a lot of genealogical societies and groups around the country, he's also the education director for the Family History Guide Association. And it's a pleasure for us to have him here tonight. I can't think of anybody better qualified to address this particular topic of technology trends in family history than Miles. In just a moment, we'll turn it over to him, but please remember that after Miles has concluded his presentation, we'll have a brief question and answer period. You can also send us questions on the chat feature, and we will endeavor to get those answered. So without further ado, Miles, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Really appreciate being here. Technology trends are some of my favorite things to deal with. I've always enjoyed looking at what's coming up. What are the new tech trends coming in, and how to utilize those to their most capabilities. So, we all remember when we used to use microfilm for our research. You would go in to do your research, you would have these cabinets full of microfilm. And of course, the microfilm roll that you were looking for wasn't there. So you'd have to make an order and a month later come back and look to see if that film has arrived, and then have to go through every single frame of that microfilm to find the one record you're looking for. And we also remember when we stored our research in 3-ring binders. We had cabinets full of 3-ring binders, all the census records that we ever did. We printed them all out. We made copies of all of the different records, and we put them into family files in each of these 3-ring binders. And then we had our 35mm cameras that we took with us everywhere we went. We go to a cemetery, we take pictures of the gravestones of our ancestors, and we would drop off those film packages and hope to get the film back in a couple days so that we could grab those pictures and put them in our albums so that we could record all of our ancestors. And then we took all of that information and we meticulously attached all of that to pedigree charts and added their names and their places and their dates all in the pedigree charts. And then realized afterwards that we had done it in pen and we screwed up something and we had to go back and correct it. Well, that was family history up until a few years ago. But where are we now? What are the things that we use now to make family history much easier for us? One of the biggest things are the cell phones. And cell phones have greatly increased our ability to do family history. We can collect data, we can share information at any time. we can have all of our photos stored on the cloud. And if we go talk to somebody, we can go right to those photos and show them the pictures of their great grandparents or whatever it might be that we're trying to share. The images that we collect on our phones include metadata, and that metadata includes things such as location, time and date, exposure data, and editing effects. This is really important if you want to map some of your information. You have the GPS information associated with where that picture was taken, and you can map that information with the photographs. And there's dozens of family history apps for your cell phone. You know, I just took a quick screenshot of my cell phone, and I've got Ancestry DNA, MyHeritage, Find My Past, Billion Graves, Family Search, Family Tree, Family Search Memories, and a variety of other apps that are on my phone that I can use to do my genealogy research. For example, the Family Search Memories app allows you to add pictures, documents, and audio to your family history on Family Search. You can push the add audio or the record audio button, and you can do an interview with somebody right there and record that information, and it connects right up to the person you're recording it, the information to that person on Family Search. You can write stories, you can take photographs. I've done this before where you go to a family reunion and somebody has their photo album, and you can just take pictures of the pictures in the photo album and then connect them up to the people that they belong to. And then the Family Tree app. This allows you to view, edit, and add records to your family history on Family Search. So you can be talking to somebody and they can say, well, you know, the birthday of your great grandfather was such and such, and here's where he was born. And you can go right to that person while you're talking to them, look up that information on Family Search about that individual and add it in right there. So you don't have to take the notes, write it down on a piece of paper, bring that paper back home, turn on your computer, and then type in the information from there. You can do it as you're talking to the individuals about the information you're looking for. The Billion Graves app, you know, this is a great app. It lets you find the cemeteries in your area. You can see where they are on a map. You can then see which headstones have been mapped out of those cemeteries. And you can go to those areas that haven't been mapped and take photographs of those headstones, and they upload automatically to the Billion Graves website, where then people can go in and connect that information up, type in the names and the dates that are on those headstones, and they're ready for use. I use this a lot while I'm traveling. For example, I'll travel to Ohio to visit family, and I'll spend a couple hours each day visiting the various cemeteries that haven't been recorded yet. And I can do an entire cemetery in some of these small communities in just an hour, hour and a half. And by the time I get back in the car, that data is already uploading to the cloud and going to Billion Graves database to be indexed. There's also some great apps like the Old News USA app. And this one here allows you to search historic newspapers and read the stories about your ancestors. So you can go in and you can type in the name of your ancestor, and it's going to show you which newspaper articles are about your ancestor or contain your ancestor's name. And you can go in and talk to people. You know, again, this is a great app to use during family reunions, where you can show them the articles about their ancestors. For example, my great grandfather, he was around during Prohibition, and he was in the newspaper quite often because of his extracurricular activities. And I can pull up those articles and I can show my relatives the articles about him being arrested by the revenuers and the federal investigators and so on. And it sparks an interest in them, or they may even remember some of these things actually happening, and then they can provide more details. Digitization is another thing that's been moving forward over the last decade or so. You know, Family Search has been digitizing their microfilm rolls, and they just recently announced that all 2.4 million rolls of microfilm are now digitized. They're not all indexed yet, they're not all available online, but they have all been digitized. And Family Search also has over 300 mobile digitization teams worldwide, capturing over 300 million new images each year. So we're gaining new information on a regular basis, and that information helps us to do our family history research. For example, a friend of mine in Ohio, she is working with the digitization teams up there. And what she did was she posted out on social media to the county organizations, the genealogy societies and the historical societies, and asked them, do you know of any records collections that we can digitize while we have these crews here? And those organizations then provided her a list of places to go visit for the crews to go and digitize those documents. And now we're getting access to more images on a frequent basis. Family Search is adding hundreds of new images each minute to their collection. And again, not all of these are indexed. If you go to the historical images collection on Family Search, if you go to the search all the way down at the bottom, it says search images. These contain all of those records that are not indexed. And you can type in the location that you're doing your research and see those records. When I went there a couple of days ago, there were over 4.8 billion images available through the image search section of Family Search. These are the images you're not going to find when you're searching by surname. And access to more indexed images, helps us with our research, but we also have to make it easier and open to all. So BYU Linking Labs has developed the reverse indexing project, which can be done online or on your phone. And the reverse indexing project shows you a surname, or you can type in your own surname, and it will then show you images of records that look similar to that. So in this case here on this image, you can see that they were searching for the name Leeks, and you can see images of written documents that have Leeks written on it. And with this app, you can go through and select which ones are correct and which ones are incorrect. And that helps to index these records very quickly. DNA is another great new trend in DNA or in your genealogy research. The advances in DNA tools such as Ancestry's through lines and MyHeritage theory of family relativity enhance our ability to analyze our family history on the molecular level. It searches all of the information that's out there, that's in various family trees, and it connects people up to their expected family lineages based on their DNA. The MyHeritage theory of family relativity doesn't just stop at searching through the MyHeritage trees. It goes through and looks at other trees. It looks at Family Search. It looks at the Genie, and it looks at other sets of documents that it's connecting up in its own database to create proposed family trees based on your DNA links. So where are we going now? Those are all the things that we currently have, but what are the next things, that are coming up here right now that we need to be aware of? A lot of it has to do with the democratization of information. The internet and digitization of records provides a way for everyone to access information. It's not just restricted to those people who had access to archives or were able to get into the dark corners of the City Hall vaults and look at those records. Many of these records now are available online, and it makes it easy for anybody to access that information and do their own family history research. And we see crowdsourcing as a major push in family history research. Online platforms, including social media and Family Search, provide ways to crowdsource our research. In the past, if you had a document that was written in a foreign language, how did you get that translated? How were you able to read that? In many cases, you had to hire somebody to do that translation for you. But now there are groups on Facebook, such as the Genealogy Translations group, where you can post an image and the people in that group are willing to freely transcribe that information for you. Or you have the Random Acts of Genealogical Kindness, where if you can ask a question and people in that area or familiar with that source material can provide you guidance on how to do your research. Family Search provides a way of a crowdsourced family tree. Everybody working in Family Search is working on the same tree or branches of that tree. And eventually they will connect up those different branches, those different little shrubs, and connect them up into the main family tree so that we all see the linkage that we have with each other. We also are starting to see the gamification of family history. And this includes adding family history themes to platforms such as scavenger hunts, escape rooms, or other game platforms. It increases the fun of doing family history research, and it brings in people that wouldn't have been interested in the old documents. You add a challenge to it. You add some clues. They have to do some detective work to find the information, and it creates that challenge with a reward and a goal as they finish it. We're also seeing an increase in community-based research. It's not just my tree or my ancestors, it's our tree and our ancestors and the community that we live in. So there are initiatives now to introduce more people to family history through these community-based research projects. And many of these projects focus on specific goals or events, such as celebrations, a centennial celebration of a community, or bringing people to the knowledge of the pioneers of that area, the people who settled that area originally, or the forgotten cemeteries of that community. What's happened to those forgotten cemeteries? Who's buried there? Let's go out and do a community-based research project and let's discover that information. You know, these are projects where you can work with the genealogy societies, the historical societies, other community groups, and bring them all together with a common goal to increase the knowledge and interest in your communities. And the increased digitization. You know, the speed at which the images are being digitized is increasing exponentially. And how to get that information into a usable form. You know, Family Search over the last couple of years has talked about how they're increasing their digitization, how it used to be a month between the time the photographs were taken and the time when they were ready to be uploaded. And now it could be as short as 24 hours between the time when it's digitized and the time when it's viewable by the public. And so this has allowed for a huge increase in the availability of records. But the access to more and it's also given us the access to more indexed images. So many of us have participated in Family Search indexing, and it makes these images searchable. We volunteer our time. We find the important information that's being looked for in those records. We add the names, the dates, the places, and whatever else, what other information is asked for. However, every year of image capture adds another decade to the indexing backlog. So, you know, all of the images that were added this year, the 300 million new images, plus the digitization of images from the microfilms, that's going to take us another decade in order to index. So every year we lose a decade or we gain a decade of indexing records. So right now, less than 20% of the current images are indexed. And so that means that less than 20% of those images can be searched by surname. The other 80% are just images available for us to search through page by page. So with all of those records to index, how do we do it? We're never going to physically be able to have enough people indexing records to keep up with the rate at which these new records are being added. So that's where we get into what's next. Artificial intelligence and computer learning. AI and computer learning are the next big thing in family history research. These are going to allow us to do projects where we can train the computer to learn how to read handwriting. So projects such as the reverse indexing that I talked about previously are being used to train the computers and read handwriting. It's not just being used to index the records, but the computers are selecting which images and which words are the correct words. And we are looking at those and verifying that the computer was correct or incorrect. And when we mark something as incorrect, that helps the computer learn what it should be looking for. And when we mark something that's correct, it confirms to the computer that it is correct in that application. And as computers learn how to read the handwriting, they can start finding the names, the dates, and the places in the various records. And so Family Search has what's called computer-assisted indexing, and they've been doing this for a while. The computer can go through and it can identify names, dates, and places in these records. And using that information, it can then do computer-assisted indexing and make those records searchable. We're already starting to see this. This is a church record from Guatemala. And you can see that the blue and the yellow highlighted sections are names, places, and dates. And you can also see that these records were indexed by a computer. And if you find an error, click here to report it. So again, clicking on the error message helps train the computers to make better selections when the computer does the indexing itself. The computers are never going to be doing all of the indexing. There is always going to be human interaction with that indexing to validate the work that the computers are doing. But the computers are 90% accurate in many of these cases when they've tested it. So that is pretty good. And eventually we might even be able just to go into a record and say, we want the computer to index this record on demand. And it could then go through that record in a couple hours, and that whole record set could be indexed. An example of this was done last year at RootsTech. Family Search provided a beta program for many of us to test out. And we could upload our own documents to this test program and have the computers transcribe that information and translate it into English. And there are a variety of languages that it's capable of working in, such as Arabic, Armenian, Cyrillic, Danish, English, French, German, Greek, Italian, Manchu, Norwegian, Portuguese, Spanish, Swedish, and Vietnamese. All of those languages are currently being computer indexed. And also with the artificial intelligence, we're seeing facial recognition software. You see facial recognition software already being used, outside of family history. For example, just recently, Delta Airlines announced that they will no longer be doing boarding passes. They will be doing facial recognition to move you through the lines quicker. And in some airports, they're already doing that with TSA, doing facial recognition. I know when I was in London at RootsTech, we did facial recognition in England. You walked up, you did a facial scan, and you walked through. It was very quick and easy. Well, if you've used the Google suite of programs, you've probably seen the Google Photos. And in Google Photos, it does facial recognition. So all of your photos that you've uploaded to the cloud in the Google Cloud Storage are undergoing facial recognition and are being categorized. So for example, here, I've got John Norwood Walker, one of my wife's ancestors, and the Google Photos has gone through all of the photos that we've uploaded, and it has classified all of them that it believes are him. So you'll see him, in a couple similar duplicate photos, but you also see him as a child, and it'll go through all those photos and, tell you that the computer believes that that is the right person. It's not always correct. You can go through and tell it that this person or this photograph is not that person, and it will disconnect that one from the photo recognition. But what would you think about a photo recognition software that could search all online photos for your ancestors and eliminate the duplicates? You could have it set to task to find pictures of, your great grandparents or your grandparents' photographs or other relatives, and come back the next day and you will see all of the photos that are of your ancestors that are on the internet. That is a possibility. We already do image searches on Google. You can dump an image and it'll find similar images to that. And all we're doing here is combining the facial recognition along with that image search capability. The computers can also enhance your images. They can fix the defects and bring out more detail with just a click of a button. It was only a few years ago where you had to know how to use Photoshop or some other editing software in order to colorize and clean up and fix the defects on your photographs. Now you can just upload them to the MyHeritage photo tool, click a button, and they become colorized or enhanced. And MyHeritage did this process by converting color photographs into black and white, and then taking that black and white photo, running it through their photo tool, and then reconverting it back to color, and then determining how close the color photograph, the original, matched to the recreation. And that's how they ended up, getting these very high quality colorization processes on their photo tool. And we also have the MyHeritage Deep Nostalgia tool. And I was hoping, let's see. There we go. So, you can upload that same photo that I just colorized and load it into the MyHeritage Deep Nostalgia tool, and it will animate your photos and bring them to life. So it'll add facial characteristics, smiles, blinking, and so on to your photographs. So what are my predictions? Okay, we just talked about what we did in the past, what we do now, some of the new technologies that are being added. Those things all exist. And with the predictions that I'm going to talk about here, most of this technology already exists also. It's just changing it from what it's being used today into a family history format. So I want to talk about the Time Machine. The Time Machine is a consortium of European archives, collections, and universities. They are utilizing the power of big data. So big data is just all of this data that's available out there in different formats and bringing it together, linking it together. And this is going to change the way that we see history. Data is being gathered by the computers to recreate the world of your ancestors. So there's a limited amount of data the further back in history you go, but we can extrapolate from information that we know and increase the amount of data that's available. The Time Machine will be able to reconstruct the buildings of any era to provide context to your ancestors' lifetime. So for example, here you see in the image, the base is a map of the area. So they took a paper map, they digitized that. Then they took all of the photographs, all of the illustrations, the paintings that are available for that region, and then oriented them in a way that they overlap and they fit onto the format of the map. That is then used to recreate the structure of the buildings and other features within that community. And then knowing what's in these photographs, you can then format those computer enhanced or computer created structures and add textures. Now, once you've created the model community and all of these buildings are created, then you can start adding the people who live there using the records of their time. So you may be using a census record or a church record or whatever records are available that show where these people lived and a little bit about their life. So here's an example. Walking down this street, you can see the various people living in this building. Their names are on right above the building. And then you can see the trades that they were involved in. And you can click on that information and get more information about the individual or about the trade that they participated in. Now, where this goes, well, this allows you to have a virtual tour of your ancestors' world. You can hold your phone or your tablet up in front of you and see the virtual world around you. You already see this in movie production, where they will hold up a screen in front of them, which will show what the background looks like with the actors in place on these green screens. Well, you'll be able to do the same thing with your cell phones. You can already do it now, using Google Earth or Google Maps Street View. You can walk down a street, but this will look at the historic perspective of that street. And then you'll be able to upload your photographs of your ancestors to be digitized into a virtual world. So we can already do this again. We can take those images and then we can overlay them over a mesh for an avatar and create avatars based on that image. Again, you see this in Hollywood all the time. That's how they do a lot of their special effects. Well, then where's the next step after that? You've all had that question asked. If you could go back in history, which one of your ancestors would you want to sit down and talk to? Well, we can take all of this data from the various records of the time and the imagery that we have, and we can recreate an interactive avatar of your ancestor that you can then meet and interact with. We see some of this already in place. You look at Family Search and you can see the timeline for a person. You look at Ancestry and you can see the life story for the person. You can combine all of those records that are available to see a narrative of the life story of that person, but this avatar would then be able to read that information, embellish it somewhat, and create the stories in a way that you can interact with them. So in the future, we're going to find this big data, these large numbers of records, immersive technologies, and more pieces of this technology will change how we look at our ancestors' lives and the way we research our family history. So I'll open it up to any questions.
Well, Miles, I think everybody is just kind of blown away. It's awfully quiet. I love hearing this stuff because my mind just takes off.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing, if this technology does get adapted to the family history environment, what the capabilities could be. And again, what that takes is an interest from, the technology viewpoint, but also being involved in social sciences, not just family history, but looking at the social sciences and the other sciences that need to be brought together to, build the stories of our ancestors in a way that becomes interactive and immersive.
Yeah, great stuff. I think, you don't have to go back too many years just to see what's happened. Used to be to find a major change in the technology and in family history, you had to go back 15, 20, 25 years, and now you go back 1 year,
right,
and see how many new things there are.
Yeah, and I've talked to many of the developers of many of these technologies that I presented here. I've had these discussions with them, and they're very interested in it. It's a lot of it has to do with where they get their grant money from, as to what they can focus on. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm not seeing any new questions on chat or anywhere, but thanks, Miles.
Sure.
Always uplifting and always a lot of food for thought on this. So we appreciate it very much. And again, I will remind everyone who's viewing this presentation that you can get access to it 24/7 at www.granitefhc.com and check in on the resources tab or the schedule tab. And you can pull up this class and lots of others that we've done. But I'd like to thank Miles for presenting this to us tonight, and good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, Miles. Enjoy your winter.